Levia is getting her second wind not only with upcoming support in Dusk Till Dawn, but with her resurgence as a viable hero in the Monarch draft format. Stay tuned for quick tips from me and other members of Team Runaways, and be sure to tune in on July 2nd for a spoiler years in the making. Land ho, my Levia players, because believe it or not, she is a relevant hero again. Some of you might have played her in CC, some in Blitz, but her draft deck is truly something else. It's just dripping with thematics. There are these monstrous demons in your deck that scare you, but you're forced to play them at some point, dragging you deeper into Blood Debt. How do you build a balanced deck? Well, these are your top 10 tips for drafting Levia. Number 1. Keep these ratios in mind. A solid Levia deck is aiming to run at a clean 30 cards comprised of about 8 blues, 15 sixes, 15 reds, 8 go-again/buff cards, and hopefully no more than 6 non-blocks. Number 2. Don't skimp on equipment. Hooves of the Shadow Beast is one of the strongest cards in Levia and a sure sign that Levia is open in your seat if you see it pass to you. Apart from that, Ebb and Fold, Blood Drop Brocade, your first and second pieces of Ironhide, and Stubbies are all fine additions to the deck. Number 3, prioritize Go Again. Go Again in a Levia deck can look like multiple things, either attacks or buff cards that effectively are giving extra stats to your one action point turn. Pulping, Dread Screamer, Zealous Belting, Brandish, Warmongers, and even Belittle and Frontline Scout can make their way into a solid Levia deck. Number 4, not all Blood Debt is created equal. Some Blood Debt attacks like Endless Maw, Dread Screamer, and even recursion pieces like a Red Howl from Beyond are fantastic inclusions to a Levia deck, but you don't want to jam your deck full of cards like Hungering Slaughterbeast and Boneyard that don't do anything other than provide decent stats. Number 5, pay attention to the wheel. In an 8-man draft pod, there are ideally 2 Levias, but sometimes as low as 1. This means that when you open a pack, you're safe to pick generic 6s first and bet on a Levia card making its way back to you when the pack wheels. Number 6, always pick Unworldly Bellows and Convulsions from the Bellows of Hell. These cards are incredible for the Boltyn matchup, the fact that they block 3 and don't have Blood Debt, and for their general utility across the board being both pumps and access to dominate. Number 7, Lunartide Plunderer is actually your best card. Hit effects are scarce in Levia, and Lunartide Plunderer in red is a breakpoint that is absolutely backbreaking for the light heroes to face, as it risks removing their soul, which is a huge tempo gain. Most chains will pass on it, so stack up as many as you can. Number 8, don't get baited by her Majestics. Funny enough, if you happen to open a Hexagore or a Shadow of Blasphemfet, those are cards that I would actually pass up on. Instead, the Majestics that are worth keeping your eye out on are Nourishing Emptiness and Rouse the Ancients. Generics, but they do a lot for a Levia deck. Number 9, try not to hate pick. There's a few exceptions to this, like Dread Scythe and Invert Existence, but for the most part, you are trying to build a functional and well-statted Levia deck. Picking your cards is more important than hating out good cards from your opponent's decks. Number 10, pick your blues last. This is Levia's most flexible slot, as she only has a few blues that are really best in slot, being Convulsions, Unworldly, and Soul Harvest. Anything else is fine to make the cut if it's even just a 2-block.
There you have it. Now you've built a very solid Levia draft deck. Despite people's reluctance to play her in Limited, she's actually quite good and pretty reliable at going at least 2-1 or better. While she's one of the hardest decks to translate from card quality to quality game plan, with these 10 tips, you'll be on your way to a 3-0. Number 1, go second. You should be able to output a solid 6 to 7 damage and set up an arsenal, get a couple cards in your graveyard so you're ready to start playing your Blood Debt cards later on. It's totally fine if you have to go first. Again, you kind of get to start fueling your graveyard and be ready for later in the game. Number 2, against Prism, clear the shields. As soon as you can, you need to be removing Prism shields. Otherwise, she's kind of forced to play Heralds or very inefficient turns. And if she plays the Heralds, you get to pop them. So your priority in this matchup is playing your Go Again cards, your Dominates, and your Breakpoints to pressure those shields. Number 3, Boltyn only cares about Lunartide Plunderer. As far as that matchup, your most disruptive on hit by far is Lunartide. I guess in the same regard would be Soul Harvest. Being able to threaten Boltyn's soul, basically time walks him a turn. He still gets to attack you when charging, but those are his inefficient turns. Once he has the soul, he'll be looking to combo kill you. Number 4, don't fatigue Chane. Against Chane, you risk losing to drawing too many non-blocks, or if they happen to have an invert existence, it's pretty backbreaking. You want to be taking trades in this matchup and trying to pressure their health total as they acquire shackles to force them to take blood debt damage and basically die before you do. Number 5, Dreadwood Rumbler wins the Levia mirror. In the mirror, neither of you have super relevant hit effects. Being able to mess with your opponent's graveyard with Dreadwood Rumbler, banishing their 6 attack cards with blood debt on your turn is extremely powerful and what you want to be doing. Number 6, don't clog your arsenal. Your deck has very important cards you want to be getting in your arsenal, especially in hands where you draw 2 cards that don't block. Your best usage, if one's not a blue, is to attack with one and set up the other for your next turn. Number 7, know your win con. It's likely not just trading 2 cards. You usually win the game through big dominate turns or going super wide and being able to play out your whole hand. Usually at some point, because your pressure is so high, your opponent is forced to sort of start blocking heavy and hope that you die to your own blood debt, and being able to end the game is something you need to be able to do. Number 8, play your first blood debt with no other blood debt in graveyard. You gain a ton of tempo when you're able to play your power cards, which have blood debt, which require you to banish cards from the graveyard without actually turning on blood debt. It puts a lot of pressure on the opponent. It still continues to fill your graveyard, and you're not on any sort of clock, so you're still playing a more flexible game where you can make the best decision in each scenario. Number 9, Arsenal and pitch blood debt cards over blocking with them. If you have strong blood debt cards, you want to be utilizing your arsenal slots to force back-to-back blood debt turns. Again, your blood debt cards are typically your stronger cards, so what you want to be doing is waiting to sort of go off or banish blood debt cards and start your clock until you're able to set up a follow-up turn. Arsenaling something like an Endless Maw, and then drawing into an Unworldly Bellow or a Dread Screamer sets you up to have 2 very strong above rate turns in a row, which should give you breathing room to manage your blood debt as you need. Number 10, block 3 and Medax is not a real game plan. While it is quite a strong and efficient play, you're using 4 cards out of your deck to make this play, so effectively you're giving yourself an 8-turn clock, which is not enough time to win the game with that strategy alone.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out Dan and the others at Fabled Runaways on YouTube. It's just been so exciting to join the team and finally share something relevant with all the years I've put into playing Levia.
Yeah, absolutely. We're lucky to have you on the team, especially with that Levia knowledge, as you said. As for the rest of the heroes, we'll be releasing the Chane, Prism, and Boltyn videos with tips later this week on the Runaways YouTube channel.
Sweet. I know I'll be tuning in, so we'll see you there.